The rain fell heavily, soaking everything in its path. David stood at the rusty gate, staring at the house he once called home. His heart was heavy, his chest tight. He could hear the laughter from inside, his family talking like everything was normal. But to David, everything felt broken. He had been jobless for years, living in the shadow of his younger brother, Leo, who had everything: a good job, a girlfriend, and the respect of the family. Still jobless, David. What a disgrace to manhood. A neighbor shouted from the street, causing David's face to burn with shame. His mother didn't even look his way. She just stood there, avoiding his gaze like he didn't exist. Leo's car pulled into the driveway, and David watched as his brother stepped out, walking confidently toward the front door. He didn't even say hello to David, not even a glance. David clenched his fists, but he said nothing. He couldn't. The weight of his failure pressed down on him. He had once dreamed of being successful, of making something of himself, but now all he felt was worthless. His ex-girlfriend, the one he had loved deeply, stood on the balcony, laughing with Leo. She looked happy, wearing a ring that David could never give her. The sight of it stung like salt in an open wound. But the worst part was that he couldn't escape the feeling of being trapped. He was stuck in a life he hated, unable to move forward, unable to be anything other than the disappointment they all saw him as. His mother, his family, even the neighbors, they all treated him like he was nothing. David stood there for a long moment, rain pouring down around him, before he finally turned and walked away. His feet felt heavy with the burden of everything he had lost. Maybe it was easier to leave than to face the people who didn't care about him anymore. But deep down, he knew something had to change. He couldn't keep living like this, stuck in the past, drowned in shame. But what could he do? Where could he go? David walked slowly down the street, a man who had once had big dreams, now just trying to survive. The mocking laughter from inside the house faded behind him, but the sting of those words, a disgrace to manhood, stayed with him. David used to be different. There was a time he walked with confidence, when people respected him and called him a man with a future. He had a job in a big company in Lagos. He wore suits, carried a laptop bag, and sent money home every month. His father was proud of him. His younger brother, Leo, looked up to him. His mother prayed for him every morning. But all of that ended one day. David was blamed for something he didn't do. A huge sum of money went missing from the company, and someone had to take the fall. David had no lawyer, no strong family name, no one to fight for him. Just like that, he was fired, and no other company wanted to hire him. His life collapsed in a single week. He returned home, thinking his family would understand. But instead of comfort, he met silence and cold shoulders. His father was sick at the time and passed away a few months later. David never got the chance to explain things to him. He died believing his first son was a failure. Leo stepped up after that. He got a job through a church connection. Then he started helping the family. He paid the bills, bought a new generator, and fixed the leaking roof. Everyone started praising him. Even their mother began comparing them openly. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" she would say without thinking. Those words stabbed David like a knife each time. David tried to find work again. He went to interviews, sent CVs, begged old friends, but nothing worked. Some neighbors even said he used juju at his old job, and that's why he was punished. Slowly, David stopped trying. He stayed indoors most days, fixing little things for the neighbors just to eat. Some paid him, some gave him leftover food. It was embarrassing, but it was all he could manage. The house wasn't the same anymore. It felt like he was living with strangers. Leo had taken over the room David used to sleep in. Now David slept in the small boys' quarters at the back. His mother barely spoke to him unless it was to complain. Sometimes she cooked and didn't even call him to eat. David got used to it. The only person who treated him kindly was Naomi. She lived 2 streets away and worked as a nurse in a private hospital. Sometimes she brought him food or asked him to fix small things in her house. Naomi never looked at him with pity, and that meant more to David than she knew. One evening, while he was fixing her leaking tap, she said, "You're smart, David. You shouldn't be here." He wanted to believe her, but he didn't know how. He felt stuck, like the whole world had moved on and left him behind. Naomi had a soft way of speaking that made people feel safe. She didn't judge, and she didn't ask too many questions. They talked about movies, about life, about pain. She told him she once failed her nursing exams twice before passing. "Everybody falls," she said, "but not everybody gets back up." Those words stayed with him, but he didn't know where to start. What made things worse was Leo. He had changed. The once humble younger brother had become proud. He spoke to David like he was a stranger, or worse, a burden. He acted like the man of the house, correcting their mother in front of guests, and even mocking David during family meetings. David kept quiet, but he never forgot the things Leo said. One time, at a family gathering, someone joked about David's joblessness. Leo laughed louder than everyone else. That day, David locked himself in the room for hours. He didn't cry, not because he didn't want to, but because the tears just wouldn't come anymore. The environment around him didn't help. The neighbors whispered when he passed. Children laughed at him. Old women shook their heads. Everyone thought he was lazy, useless, or cursed. And David started to believe them. But deep inside him, something was still alive, a small fire that refused to go out. He remembered how it felt to be respected, how it felt to take care of others, how it felt to dream. But now, all of that seemed so far away. What was at stake? Everything. David had lost his name, his pride, and his future. But more than that, he was losing himself. Every day he stayed in that house, he sank deeper into the dark. His mother's silence hurt more than words. His brother's mockery was a wound that never healed. His father's memory haunted him. He had no job, no savings, no respect. But the one thing he still had, just barely, was hope. Hope that something might still change. Hope that one day he would walk through that gate not as a disgrace, but as a man again. But how? That was the question that kept him awake every night. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where nothing seemed special. David had just returned from fixing a neighbor's broken window when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Naomi. "Can you come over when you're free? I have something to show you." David wiped his hands and walked the short distance to her place. She opened the door with a quiet smile and handed him a letter. He looked at it, confused. "You applied for me?" he asked, still holding the envelope. Naomi nodded. "I used your old CV and added a few updates. I sent it to a tech company in Canada. I know someone who works there. They saw your past experience and liked it." David's hands shook slightly. "But I didn't even open it," Naomi said. Inside was a letter of offer. Not just an interview, but a full-time job offer with a relocation plan. The company wanted him in 3 months. They'd even help with accommodation and visa. David felt his knees weaken. He sat down slowly. For the first time in years, someone saw value in him. Someone believed he could still become something. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say you'll go," Naomi said. He smiled a little, hope flickering inside him again. "I'll go." But there was a problem. His passport. It was in a small safe box inside Leo's wardrobe. Years ago, when David had returned home, he gave it to Leo to help him register for a loan. After the loan fell through, Leo never gave it back. David went home and waited for Leo to return from work. When Leo finally stepped in, David took a deep breath and stood up. "Leo, I need to talk to you." Leo raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "My passport. I need it. It's in your wardrobe." Leo scoffed. "What do you need it for? Someone inviting you to a wedding abroad?" David tried to stay calm. "I got a job offer. They want me in Canada. It's a real opportunity." Leo laughed out loud. "Who gave you a job? As what? Street sweeper?" David's jaw tightened. "I'm serious, Leo. I need the passport." "You're not going anywhere," Leo said, walking past him. "Stop dreaming. You can't even fix your own life." David stepped in front of him. "I'm not asking. Just give it to me." Their mother walked in at that moment. "What's going on?" David turned to her. "Mama, please tell Leo to give me my passport. I got a job offer." Leo shook his head. "Don't mind him. He's making up stories again." Their mother looked at David. "You got a job? After all this time?" David held up the letter. "Here, read it." She took the letter, read a few lines and frowned. "Canada? But how?" "Naomi helped me," David said softly. Leo burst out laughing again. "So now Naomi is your savior? She must be desperate." David's eyes darkened. "Don't talk about her like..." Leo stepped closer. "Or what? What will you do, David? You can't even take care of yourself. Now you think you'll travel abroad?" The words hit hard. But what happened next shocked everyone. For the first time in years, David raised his hand and shoved Leo backward. "Don't ever speak to me like that again," he said, voice shaking with anger. Leo stumbled, caught himself, and stared at David like he'd gone mad. Their mother gasped. "David, I'm tired of being disrespected," David said, looking at both of them. "I didn't come back home to be mocked every day. I lost everything, yes, but I'm not nothing. I deserve better." Leo pointed at him. "You just made a big mistake." David ignored him and walked to the bedroom. He tried opening the wardrobe, but it was locked. Leo followed him and pushed him away. Touch my things again and you'll regret it. Their mother stepped between them. Stop it! Both of you! David looked at her, hoping she would take his side. Mama, just tell him to give me my passport, please. But she didn't. She just stood there, torn, saying nothing. That silence cut deeper than any insult. David stepped back, nodding slowly. I see. He turned and left the room. That night, he packed a small bag. He didn't have a passport, no flight booked, and no clear plan. But he couldn't stay there anymore. He went to Naomi's house and knocked gently. She opened the door and saw the bag in his hand. You're leaving? She asked. I have to, he said. I can't breathe in that house anymore. I don't know what I'll do yet, but I have to go. I'll figure out a way to get my passport back. Maybe apply for a new one. But I can't let this chance pass. Naomi looked at him, her eyes full of worry and something else. Before you go, she said, there's something I need to tell you. David paused. What is it? Naomi hesitated, then took a deep breath. I'm pregnant, and it's Leo's baby. David blinked, shocked. What? He left me, she said, voice shaking. He promised to marry me. Then he stopped calling. He said he's too busy, but I know what that means. He used me. David stood there, frozen. This changed everything. Now he couldn't just walk away. He had a new reason. David couldn't sleep that night. He sat on Naomi's couch, holding his head in his hands. Her words kept ringing in his ears. I'm pregnant, and it's Leo's baby. He looked at her, sitting quietly across from him, her eyes full of pain and fear. Naomi had always been strong, always calm, but now she looked tired, like she had been carrying a heavy load all by herself. Why didn't you tell me before? David asked. Naomi sighed. I was afraid. I didn't know how you'd react. I thought maybe Leo would change his mind. I hoped he'd come back and take responsibility, but he didn't, David said quietly. No, Naomi replied. He cut me off, blocked my number. He moved on like nothing happened. David felt anger rise inside him. This wasn't just carelessness. This was betrayal. Leo had taken everything from him, his father's trust, his mother's love, and now Naomi too. He played all of us, David whispered. Even me. Naomi looked down. I'm sorry, David. No, he said, shaking his head. You didn't do anything wrong. You believed in someone you thought cared. They sat in silence. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the night felt heavy. The next morning, David went back to the house to collect some of his old documents. He didn't want to talk to anyone. He just wanted to get in and out. But the moment he entered, Leo was there, sitting at the dining table, laughing on the phone. When he saw David, his face turned cold. Back so soon, Leo said. I thought you ran away. David ignored him and went to the back room. But Leo followed him. You think getting Naomi pregnant makes you a man now? David stopped. What did you say? Leo smirked. She told you, didn't she, that I left her? She didn't tell you she begged me to marry her. She's nothing but desperate. David turned, eyes burning. You used her, and now you talk like she's trash. Leo leaned in. She came to me, not the other way around. She knew what it was. I never promised anything. David couldn't take it anymore. He pushed Leo hard against the wall. You don't get to destroy people and act like it's nothing. Their mother came rushing in. What is wrong with you two again? David stepped back, breathing hard. Ask him, Mama. Ask your precious Leo what he did to Naomi. Leo straightened his shirt. I didn't force anyone. She knew what it was. Their mother looked confused. What's this about? David looked her in the eyes. Naomi is pregnant. It's Leo's child, and he left her. She gasped. Is this true? She asked Leo. Leo rolled his eyes. She wants someone to blame. I never made any promises. Their mother sat down, shocked. You brought shame to this family. David laughed bitterly. Now you see it. You always thought he was better than me. She looked at David, still stunned. And you? Where are you even staying now? I'm with Naomi, helping her, he replied. That's not your responsibility, she said. No, David said, but I choose to be there. Someone has to do the right thing. David walked out of the house. He didn't care anymore about respect or who said what. He had nothing to lose. But now, he had something to protect. Over the next few days, whispers spread in the neighborhood. People started talking about Leo and Naomi. Some blamed Naomi, calling her foolish. Others began to see Leo in a different light. David stayed close to Naomi. He helped her get medical checkups. He went with her to the market. He made sure she didn't feel alone. But something still bothered him. He couldn't stop thinking about how everything had gone wrong in his life. One evening, he met an old friend, Tunde, at a small roadside shop. Tunde used to work in the same company where David got fired. They talked for a while, and then Tunde said something strange. You know, the way they blamed you back then never made sense. I always thought someone set you up. David looked at him. What do you mean? I heard some things, Tunde said. A few months after you left, someone said your brother had been asking questions about your department, about the contract you were working on. People thought it was strange, but no one said anything. David felt his chest tighten. Are you saying Leo had something to do with what happened to me? Tunde shrugged. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. He got a job not long after that, right? David didn't sleep that night. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit. Could it be true? Could Leo have done something back then to ruin his life? He remembered how quickly Leo got a job, how confident he became, how he suddenly had money to help the family. It all made sense now. David felt something break inside him. It wasn't just about Naomi anymore. It was everything. All the years he had lost, all the pain, all the shame. Leo hadn't just hurt him recently. Leo had destroyed his future from the very start. David knew one thing now. He couldn't let it go. He had to find the truth. It had been 6 months since David left the house. During that time, everything changed. He applied for a new passport, and with Naomi's help, he fast-tracked the process. The company in Canada kept in touch, and when all his documents were ready, they flew him out. He started work, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was alive again. He worked hard, saved money, and started a small business online. It grew quickly. His managers were impressed. They offered him a long-term contract. David finally had a fresh start, but he didn't forget. He didn't forget Leo or what he had done. One day, while organizing some old documents, David found copies of emails and files from his old job that Naomi had saved from his laptop. With some help from his new company's legal team, he compared them to records he requested from his old office in Nigeria, and there it was. Proof. Leo had sent an anonymous report with fake evidence. He had framed David to get him out of the way, so he could take his place. David stared at the screen for a long time. It was painful to accept, but it explained everything. Now, it was time to go back, not for revenge, but for truth. A few weeks later, a black SUV pulled up in front of the same compound David had once walked away from, soaked in rain and shame. Now he stepped out wearing a clean, dark suit. Behind him, Naomi stepped down, holding a baby girl in her arms, her face calm, but her eyes strong. The gate opened. Neighbors peeked out, their mouths open in shock. Is that David? He came back? Is that his car? David walked into the compound with quiet confidence. No words, just presence. Leo came out of the house, surprised and confused. What are you doing here? David stood in front of him. I came to talk. Leo laughed nervously. Talk? You've been gone for months. What makes you think anyone here wants to hear from you? David took a breath. I'm not here for drama, just truth. Their mother stepped out, shocked to see him. David, is that really you? David nodded. It's me, Mama. She stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. You look different. I am different, he said. Leo stepped forward. So you come back with a car and a suit and think you can act like a king? David didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out a brown envelope and handed it to Leo. What's this? Leo asked. Proof, David said quietly. You destroyed my life 6 years ago. You sent fake documents to my company. You ruined my name so you could take everything from me. The job, the house, even her. Leo's face went pale. You're lying. Their mother looked between them, confused. What is he talking about? David handed her the second copy of the papers. Everything is in here. Emails, IP address. Your son didn't just lie. He betrayed his own blood. Leo shook his head. Number. He's trying to turn you against me. David turned to her. Look at me, Mama. Did I ever lie to you? Even when you ignored me, even when I had nothing, did I ever stop respecting you? She looked down, guilt flooding her face. Leo grabbed the papers and tore them up. This means nothing. David stared him in the eye. You can tear the paper, but not the truth. Naomi stepped forward, still holding the baby. This is your child, she said to Leo. You may not care, but she will grow up knowing her worth, and she will know who walked away and who stayed. Neighbors began gathering. People were whispering. The compound, once filled with silence, now buzzed with tension. Leo felt the pressure. He looked at his mother, but she stepped back. I don't know who you are anymore, she said softly. David turned to leave, but before he walked away, he said one last thing. You took everything from me, but I built myself again, without hate, without hurting anyone. That's the difference between us. He looked at his mother one last time. I forgive you, Mama, even when you stayed silent. she cried quietly, her hand over her mouth. David walked out, Naomi beside him, their daughter between them. The neighbors watched in silence. Nobody laughed this time. Nobody called him a disgrace. David didn't need revenge. He had something greater: peace, truth, and a new life. And that was more powerful than anything Leo ever had. David didn't look back as he walked away from the compound. He had done what he came to do. The truth was now out in the open. His heart felt lighter, but not because of revenge, because he had finally spoken his truth. A few days later, news of the confrontation spread around town. People stopped whispering behind David's back. Now they talked about how he stood up for himself. They spoke about how Leo had betrayed his own brother. Some people still tried to defend Leo, but the evidence was too strong. Most people began to see David in a new light. Back in Canada, David returned to work with a new sense of peace. He was no longer carrying the shame that had followed him for years. The weight was gone. He could now walk freely, without hiding from his past. Naomi and the baby moved in with him. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was real. David wasn't the child's father by blood, but he loved her like his own. He named her Grace, because even after all the pain, he had found something beautiful. He started a new project, a tech program that helped young people in Nigeria get training and remote jobs. He worked with partners in both countries. The goal was simple: give others the opportunity he almost lost. He knew what it meant to be rejected and forgotten. He didn't want others to suffer the same. Back at home, Leo lost the respect he once had. His lies had caught up with him. He lost his job when David's former company heard the full story. His pride was broken, and slowly, people stopped looking up to him. David's mother reached out after some time. She called one evening, her voice soft and unsure. "David, I've been thinking about everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know, I'm sorry." David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Mama, I forgave you a long time ago. I just needed to find myself first." She began to cry. "I failed you as a mother." "No," he replied. "You were hurting too. You just didn't know how to help." They talked for a long time that night. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. David also forgave Leo in his heart, but he didn't go back to fix anything. Some wounds needed distance. He no longer hated his brother. He simply chose not to carry the pain anymore. He had a new life to live, and he wasn't going to waste it. With Naomi by his side, he started building a home filled with peace and honesty. They weren't rich, but they had joy. They laughed often. They prayed together. And every time Grace called him Daddy, something in his heart healed a little more. David didn't need applause. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He had faced the storm and survived. He had rebuilt his life, not by fighting dirty, but by standing in truth. Justice had been served, not in court, but in the way life turned around. People now invited him to speak at events, to share his story. He talked about failure, betrayal, and how hope can return when you least expect it. Young people listened. Some cried. Some said, "If David can rise again, maybe I can too." That's all he wanted, to turn his pain into purpose. One evening, David sat on the porch with Naomi and Grace. The sun was setting. The sky was soft and orange. Grace was playing with a toy, laughing. Naomi leaned on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about the past?" she asked. David smiled. "Sometimes, but I don't stay there. I lived in darkness for too long. Now I just want to enjoy the light." Naomi nodded. "You're not the same man I met back then." He looked at her. "And you gave me the strength to find myself again. You didn't fix me, but you stood by me while I healed." They sat in silence, watching the sky change colors. David had lost everything once, but now he had something better: peace, love, and a future he built with his own hands. He was no longer the man people mocked. He was no longer the disgrace. He was a man who fell and got back up, and that made all the difference. The evening was quiet. A soft breeze moved through the trees outside David's house. Inside, Naomi was putting Grace to sleep. David stood near the window, looking out at the calm street. The sky was dark, but peaceful. He remembered the first time he stood at the gate of his family home, soaking wet, full of shame. He had felt useless, unwanted, broken. Everyone had laughed at him. Even the people closest to him had turned away. But now, everything had changed. He wasn't rich, but he had peace. He wasn't famous, but he had purpose. He had a home filled with love. He had Naomi, who never gave up on him. He had Grace, who smiled every time she saw him and called him Daddy without question. He touched the window glass and whispered, "Thank you, God." Not because everything was perfect, but because he had survived. He had healed. A knock came at the door. It was a delivery man with a letter from Nigeria. It was from his old neighbor, the one who once called him a disgrace. Inside was a short note. "We were wrong. You proved us all wrong. You didn't shout. You didn't fight. But you won. May God bless you." David smiled, not with pride, but with quiet strength. He folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Then he walked to Grace's room and stood at the door. Naomi looked up and smiled. "She's asleep," she whispered. David nodded and watched his daughter breathe softly. He didn't need to say anything. Everything he had gone through had led to this moment, this peace, this stillness, this second chance. He wasn't the same man anymore. They once called him a disgrace, but he walked away with his head high, not to prove them wrong, but because he finally believed in himself, and that was enough.